Welcome to We in Lewis, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the remarkable, creative, and energetic people who live in Lewis. And here's the amazing part. Without any coordination or plan, are helping our community rise above all the usual divisions, negativity, and angst you can find anywhere in this country and forge a community soul as appealing as it is unique. I'm Kevin McGinnis. We're really fortunate today. Our guest is Lewis Chief of Police Tom Spell. Before coming to Lewis, among other things, Chief Spell had an incredible career with the Wilmington Police Department, where he served as a detective for 18 years as a member of the SWAT team, and at one point later in his career was managing over 200 uniformed officers. Today's episode is brought to you by a sponsor who was asked to remain anonymous. He and his wife are avid listeners, enthusiastic supporters of the podcast, and we greatly appreciate their generosity in help covering equipment costs and all the others of fees associated with bringing you today's show. Chief Spell, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Glad to be here.
What is it about Lewis that made you decide to apply for the job as Chief of Police?
So my Lewis journey obviously started probably close to 25 years ago. Obviously, as you said in the introduction, I lived outside of Wilmington, just across the line in Pennsylvania, in Kennett Square. We had some dear friends who had a house here in Lewis, and we used to come down quite often with them, and really fell in love with all that Lewis is and the area, not just the beach and the water, but the people, and came down half a dozen or more times a year for extended weekends. Just loved it, and I woke up one day, and my wife said, "Hey, we're moving to Lewis." and I said, "Really? I work in Wilmington." She goes, "Yeah, well, your daughter and I are going. Are you coming?" So, of course, I quickly jumped on board. And that was in 2015, I guess. So that's how I ended up here. Initially, not as the police chief. At that point, I had spent 24 years with the Wilmington Police Department, retired from there, and was the warden at Ferris School for Boys, Delaware's only adjudicated youth facility. So for about a year, maybe just a little bit over that, I commuted every day to Wilmington, which, as anybody that commutes to Wilmington from southern Delaware knows, it was a long year.
Did you go up Route 1 and have to deal with the construction of those overpasses and so on?
Yes, the jug handle, 95, 141. It was an interesting commute, painful commute for sure. So, she just said that one day. We came down, bought our first house here. We are currently on our third house.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I say. And that kind of, as I was here commuting, the job became available when Chief Horvath retired. And at that point, I was out of policing just a little over 4 years. Missed it. Missed the work, missed the people. Missed, doing good for the community. And I said, man, I really want to look at this job and get back in. Series of interviews, and I was fortunate enough in June of 2016 to be hired as the next police chief.
Well, it's our good fortune as well. Many who live here know you as the police chief. Not many know you are a graduate of Penn State and the FBI Law Enforcement Development School. Can you share a little bit more about your experience there?
Well, FBI has a national academy, which is a resident program. I went to the non-resident program, which is a law enforcement executive development school. A series of weeks over a period of time, where you obviously network and train with other executives in policing, just on a variety of topics that are important in policing. I was fortunate enough when I was at Wilmington Police to get to go to that school.
Did you find there that not only did you meet other people, but also you had the experience of realizing what you're going through is not that unique, that other people are experiencing the same challenges?
Yes. Policing is pretty similar in most parts of the country.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with the police department in Wilmington? Because I know you did a lot, a very distinguished career.
Yeah, I had a great career, lots of fun in Wilmington. May be dating myself, and most people I hire and supervise now weren't born when I started. But 1988, I was fortunate enough to be hired by the Wilmington Department of Police and spent the next 24 or so years there. Had a great career, did a lot of good, fun policing. I obviously was a patrol officer for some time. Fortunate enough to get promoted relatively early. I was in charge of a bike unit where I got to ride a bike on the west side of Wilmington, which was so much fun. Talk about good interactions with people. Mm-hmm. As I think you said in the opening, most of my career as a detective and a detective supervisor was spent in the detective division, where I started as a auto theft investigator, a sex crimes investigator, then a crimes against persons investigator, which includes robberies, homicides. I was fortunate enough to get promoted and go back to that unit as a sergeant supervising. So had a obviously big challenges in the criminal investigation division in Wilmington, but the men and women staffing that division, were dedicated public servants. It was great to work with them and to see the work they tried to do every day. Tough business for sure. I also was fortunate enough early on in my career to kind of take a tactical path as far as being part of the Wilmington Police SWAT team, where we, served, search warrants on Delaware's most violent criminals that resided in the city. And that was also, a good experience, learning every day, figuring out how to do things safely, always trying to keep your people safe. So it was interesting.
So you went from there to the Ferris School for Boys. And I think it's unique not throughout the country, but it's unique in Delaware in terms of its mission. Is that right?
It is. It is Delaware's only facility for adjudicated youth. So they're sentenced by the court. Ferris School for Boys is obviously a juvenile prison or facility, but we had school every single day for them, 3 meals every day, stable housing. We had a football team, a basketball team, a lacrosse team that actually played only home games, of course, against other Delaware high schools. It was fun to be able to see the youth in a safe, secure environment. Unfortunately, probably the safest and most stable environment that they've had. Those kids were really no different than yours and mine in that safe environment. They were taken care of. They were schooled. We cared about them. We did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy training with them to try to, rework their thinking patterns and use evidence-based programs. So it was a challenge, but it was a good 4.5 years or so, trying to help those kids, do better for themselves.
That's a pretty diverse background. If you take being a detective, being on the bike, SWAT team, teaching at the school, working at the school, were you able to utilize all of that experience here in Lewis?
Yeah, in one way or another, your experiences shape you into who you are. I did have a couple of years as an Army officer thrown in there, post-college, all reserve time, no active duty time. But yeah, your experiences shape who you are. Coming to Lewis was a great next step for me and for my family.
I have to ask you, I've been asked to ask you a question about being a detective.
Yeah.
Because I think, as you know, much of America is captivated with detective shows in television, in the movies. It seems we can't seem to get enough of them. As a matter of fact, we're not only fascinated with detective shows here, I think we keep watching detective shows over in England. Right. And I think some of us spend too much time on that, speaking for myself. Is there one of these shows that you've seen that comes as close to mirror reality?
Yeah, the short answer is no. Just no. Being a good detective is about hard work. It's about, getting your hands dirty, interviewing people, gaining trust with people you interview to tell you things that, they don't necessarily want to tell you. Obviously, as a detective, you see, the worst of humanity because you're investigating the major felony crimes. And it's tough work. It's extremely rewarding. I learned more in my years as a detective than any place else. But the CSIs of today don't really help us because occasionally you'll get a fingerprint hit. Occasionally you'll get some DNA, but it's not a matter of routine like it is.
It doesn't happen every time.
Not every time.
Who would have guessed?
No.
Did you always have to wear a suit?
Yeah, suit or at least shirt and tie and jacket. Yeah.
And how many cases, when you were a detective, would you be handling at the same time?
20 to 30.
20 to 30?
Yeah. Yeah. Some are pretty simple, no real leads to follow up on, but you had to get your eyes on it and determine that. And then some were much more involved. So yeah, it was challenging. Yeah, I can remember being 30 or 40 down at one point when it was really bad, and staffing was low, and the variety of factors. But yeah, probably 20 to 30 would be pretty normal.
How do you keep them all separate?
It's difficult.
A lot of notes? Do you take a lot of notes?
Yeah, a lot of handwritten notes that go in the file for sure. Wow. You just, do a little bit of work on as many as you can every day till you figure out whether it's solvable or you just move on.
Did you have a technique, that would you like Columbo come in at the last second? I have one other question.
I employed a technique where I would come in with a big box that really had nothing to do with it, but the people you're interviewing or trying to get confessed, you kept referring to the box and the material you had in there, like you had all this mountain of evidence, and you didn't necessarily, but that was a technique to get them to think you were way ahead of them. I learned this technique early in my career. I went to an interview in an interrogation school, and old instructor actually did it to us in the class. He brought a box in as he was teaching and kept referring to the box and would open the box occasionally, look in it, and we were always like, oh my God, what's in that box? What's he have for us? And at the end, he kind of wrapped it up that, it's just a prop, but it's a great investigative technique. He would, it's a great big box, and I can remember using it a lot of times, not every interview, but sometimes you just, would go to the box, would open it up as you're talking, as you're trying to elicit, a truthful confession from a suspect. You'd close the lid, and, of course, they're always like going back and forth between you and this box. You talk about, fingerprint hit, and then you'd go to the box and open the box, maybe just pull out a fingerprint card with somebody else's fingerprints on it and just put it on the table, not really let him see it. And it was just a technique to move people along the path of being truthful. It's just that simple. And more often than not, the box had absolutely nothing to do with anything.
But did you just have a box filled with stuff?
Yeah, sometimes mostly empty, sometimes miscellaneous paperwork, usually nothing to do with the subject matter that you were discussing.
Was this a shoebox or
No,
a
it was more
box?
like a file box.
A file box,
yeah,
okay.
With numbers written on, looked all official.
Oh, so-
Yeah, just a technique. That's all. It's really satisfying to get somebody to tell you the truth when they don't want to, and the stakes are generally high. So that's a gratifying moment when that happens. That doesn't happen all the time.
Now, you hear techniques about telling when people are lying, such as their voice goes up, or their eyes go to the right,
Yep.
Guys go up to the right.
Body language.
Are those true?
They are true. They're just.
So you've been great.
Yeah, they're natural. You can't avoid them. The really good criminals might be able to, but they don't really understand human psychology and emotion and the trainings kind of teach you all that, what to look for. It doesn't tell you the degree of what the lie is, but gives you angles to work for sure, which is fun.
Well, you must have been, if your kids got dragged in front of you, that must have been some interview in giving them. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, it didn't
you didn't use the box with the kids?
It didn't work well for them. No box for them. That would have been torture. Child Protective Services might have been called. But.
Most residents assume that Lewis is kind of the classic small town with a handful of Andy Griffith type problems. At the other extreme is Chief Brody from the movie Jaws. I'm guessing reality is slightly different somewhere, perhaps in there, but not all the time. Lewis may be wonderful, but it's not immune to the world in which we live. Is that right?
Yes, I would agree. Lewis is obviously a great community. Certainly leads, in my opinion, Delaware and the Delaware Beach area. But yeah, we are not immune. I have a lot of cops in my family and a lot of friends from my previous work make fun of me and call me Chief Brody. But yeah, Lewis, we have some other problems, and certainly when you leave our jurisdiction, the problems increase.
I believe there was one that got some publicity in 2021 here in downtown.
Yes, we had a pretty major meth ring operating, and we were able to infiltrate them, investigate them quite closely, and turned out we made a nice meth arrest as a result, which is pretty unheard of in downtown Lewis.
Well, thank God.
Yes.
Thank God. But
yes.
I think it was a pretty coordinated investigation, right? You were working not only with the department, you were working with the state, and I believe the feds as well, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we employed the DEA and the Delaware State Police to assist us. They have, technologies that aren't available to us on an everyday basis, which all played a part in putting that together.
Well, now that we've freaked out anyone who's listening, what are the normal issues your department has to deal with?
So Lewis is, I often tell people an afternoon during the summer in Wilmington, the violent crime that occurs during that 8-hour shift that I used to work is probably a year's worth of Lewis violent crime, which is a great thing. Our violent crime statistics are very low in Lewis. But we have a variety of property crimes, frauds, thefts. Our elderly population kind of tends to be sometimes taken advantage of. During the summer months, we have an influx of people. Is that 15,000, 20,000 on popular weekends? Probably. So more of the routine type problems of theft, accidents, complaints like that. Still no major violent crime, which is a good thing. Of course, we're always prepared for that should that occur, but it's usually definitely non-violent type crime.
But every day you have to be ready.
Absolutely.
How do you prepare yourself for that eventuality or that probability that every day or every car you approach, it could be the bad day?
Yeah, that's probably one of the bigger stressors for police officers. It's a reality in our job that you leave the police station, you turn left on Kings Highway, and you have a great day. You turn right on Kings Highway, and it could be a total opposite. It could be a terrible day because you see a car doing something, you stop it, and, obviously who knows. We, again, Lewis is low in crime, but that doesn't mean we are not prepared to deal with that crime. It's just you have to keep that mental focus. Sometimes you see police officers, resting their hand on a gun or something. It's not because it's because we want to be prepared should we need to. So it's really about staying focused, training. We insist, our main focus are really constitutional and professional policing. We insist upon that from every Lewis police officer. And we do a great job at that. But as we're doing that, we're also in the back of our mind always preparing for the worst. You just don't know what that next car stop's going to bring.
How big is the department?
We are 15 officers.
Okay.
Since 1999, I think, we were at 13. Obviously, we've grown quite a bit in the area. A year and a half ago, council authorized 2 additional staff to get us to 15. Of course, we couldn't hire anybody during COVID, and then post-COVID was a difficult time. And right now we are at 15. I have 1 in the Dover Police Academy. So we're in a good position right now.
So how do you work with them on the mental side of the preparation, that what you were just talking about, having to deal with the unexpected?
So it's a challenge. I would say police training from day one pretty much starts that process. It's I'll be out with my wife in shorts and a t-shirt, and she's always like, "What are you looking at? Why aren't you looking at me?" It's something that is simply ingrained in you. You're just always prepared, always looking around. You have to, you go to work every day in a police uniform, and people look at you nonstop. So, you kind of get used to that. But at the same time, you're always staying focused and looking for things that normal people don't look for.
So about that, I think most of us, as we go through our daily life, we follow patterns. We end up sort of driving the same place. And when we drive, we look at the same things. And we tend to miss things that are outside the visual patterns. I think all of us experience where we're driving on new road. How many times do all of us have to do that over the course of a week or a day? And suddenly you'll see a house you've never seen before. There's a book entitled Left of Bang by Justin Riley and Patrick Van Horn, based upon the Marine training on situational awareness. What do you see when you walk and drive around Lewis, or how do you work on making sure your pattern is inclusive and not exclusionary?
Yeah, it's another challenge and part of the stress of policing. I think you and I talked about this previously, statistics about war veterans that come from urban areas as opposed to rural areas. Didn't we? We did. And the rural country boys who, I don't want to say country boys, but people that live in rural areas that do worse in warfare than those that come from urban areas. Because in an urban area, there's so much going on and so much that you have to absorb and be ready for. Just crossing the street, for example, in an urban area is much more challenging than a rural area. In policing, it's no different. You have to present the, calm professional demeanor, but also be looking for a variety of different things depending on the area you're in.
Do you work on this with your staff?
We talk about it incessantly as far as being ready, being prepared, being professional, following rules. We're rules-based. So we talk a lot about it, but it is very hard. Variety of trainings, obviously, but it is still very hard to, to maybe just totally prepare for that. It's more about instinct and reaction. You do as you're trained, and police officers, thankfully, are able to, in most circumstances, do that.
As you've said repeatedly, this is a fairly, for the United States, quiet town. We don't have a lot of issues. How do you strike the right balance when you're dealing with all of the complaints you receive? Because I know you get quite a variety.
Yeah, you're right. We have the whole spectrum. Usually most are on the easier side. We have a great community here, but, one person's problem is a problem to them. And we try to deal with every problem professionally, appropriately. And, you interact with one person, you try to solve that problem for them or give them strategies to help them solve it. Because sometimes they're not crimes and they don't really require police intervention. For example, a neighborhood complaint, I always urge residents to talk with their neighbor. Use us as a last resort. It's really about opening those lines of communication, trying to come to an understanding. Most are successful doing that. It's our job, though, and we really focus on, that interaction. We urge people, you make the Hall of Fame if you bat, 350 through a career. In policing, I always tell people we're not a 99% business. We are actually 100% business, and that's a hard goal to attain every day. But every single interaction you take, whether it be making an arrest or just warning somebody, you have to be on your game. Here in Lewis, people might only interact with the police, I don't know, a few times in their life. You want that interaction to be professional, robust, and accurate, and that's what we strive for.
What advice do you give citizens here if they see a traffic violation or something happening on the beach or problems with parking and so on? Should they step in or should they give you a call?
Yeah, I urge people to call us. That's what we do. That's what we're equipped to do. We have the knowledge to deal with that. Stepping in generally probably will just escalate an incident, especially if you let emotion get involved. We try to deal with things in an unemotional manner because that's what we do. If you reach out, call us. We have a couple different numbers. You can even just call 911, which is fine.
Okay, so make the call. Don't try to fix it.
Yes, I would agree.
What's the biggest misconception about the department that if you can, you'd like to correct?
So we have a staff that has great experience and is really talented. For example, my lieutenant, he knows the profession like probably very few police officers I've ever been involved with. He knows how to do things, the rules, the policies, the laws, the technology, and that kind of carries throughout the agency. We have a variety of really well-experienced police officers. Intentionally so, I was able to, during COVID and then the police reform movement, I was able to sell Lewis for our environment and our type of policing. I have police officers that were in Charleston, South Carolina. I had one from Colorado, Howard County, Maryland, New Jersey, and most recently from Wilmington. People that had done bigger policing elsewhere, and we're looking for a nicer environment to work in, to police in, to raise their family in. So we have, from top of the agency on down, really, really experienced, dedicated police officers. We're not, just traffic cops or, Andy Griffith types at all. We have really good people, which really makes an agency what it is.
That's fantastic. Your wife, Ellen, is a successful businesswoman and owner of the popular Sea Cycle and Sea Bar Fitness out on Route 1. So if we were to go there, can we see you on a bike?
Fixing a bike, maybe. Taking out the trash, maybe. Occasionally. I'm surprised you didn't introduce me in the opening as Ellen's husband.
I'm sorry.
Tom, because
I'm sorry.
That's how I'm really known in the community. She's been successful and has certainly immersed herself in the community as well, as far as her business providing really good fitness to people. I'm occasionally on a bike. I haven't been in a while. I'm a CrossFitter at heart, so I go to Lewis CrossFit. My wife and I, we have an understanding about that. So occasionally you'll see me on a bike, not always though.
But you're saying the Sea Bar is a really hard workout.
Yeah, it's a great workout. Very low impact, very intense though. That is difficult. I fully admit it. There's 75-year-old women in there just kicking my butt.
There was a story in the Gazette about a driver who lost control of her car and drove into the studio.
That's right.
This wasn't, by the pictures, this wasn't a minor accident resulting in a dented cinder block or a broken window. What happened?
No, it's a typical, you think you're pressing the brake and you're actually pressing the gas, and then you double down when you think that because you think you're on the brake, and in the parking lot jump the curb, We were closed at the time, thank God. Crossed the sidewalk through the front window and didn't stop till probably 20 or so bikes were demolished. We were fortunate for sure that we weren't open. And it took a couple weeks to, of course, my wife started making phone calls and got back to it right away.
I'm glad she was able to recover so quickly, because that looked pretty amazing. That looked pretty significant.
Yeah, the car was in probably 30 or 40 feet.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's not that big a space, right?
Mm-mm.
Now, you and Ellen have 3 children who went to an extremely prestigious and one of the most challenging colleges in America. Is that true?
Yeah, all 3 of my kids were fortunate enough to attend West Point. Quite a journey for the 3 of them, for sure. I like to say they got my Irish work ethic and my wife's brains, and it was a good combination. My oldest daughter, Emma, started their tradition in 2013, I guess, is when she went. Graduated in 2017. Followed by my son, who graduated in 2019. And then just a few weeks ago, my youngest daughter, Alyssa, was able to get through, and they all graduated and are commissioned officers in the Army. My oldest little actually just got out about a month ago, did 6 years, made captain. My son is still a captain in the Army in Colorado Springs. He's a tanker. And then my youngest just graduated. She has a month and a half off, and then we'll report to Fort Moore, Georgia, for training. Been a I thank West Point for the everything will be easy after that for them. Not easy, but they're well-adjusted children as a result. They had a great education, were challenged every single day for the 4+ years. No time off in the summers, a little bit of time here and there, but it's an amazing institution that teaches them how to lead. Your first year you're led by cadets. The second year you supervise a few cadets. The third year you supervise even more. And then the fourth year, of course, they run the school basically, or the Corps cadets. So it was a great experience for them.
But as a father,
yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, I have 3 kids. I love them all to death. I don't think any of them were going to West Point or the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy. How did you do that? I mean, that's a remarkable tribute to your parenting.
Yeah, that's a good question. If I could patent that, I might be able to retire from policing. But yeah, it's good, consistent parenting. We were not hard on our kids, but we made them toe the line and live up to what we know they could achieve, and the expectations we set were high for them. They always were. And then my 2 younger kids saw it from my older daughter, and they're like, hey, I can do this. And so good, consistent parenting, set high expectations for them, and they achieved it, which was great.
Having been a detective, did that help with discipline when the kids were in high school?
So yes. I broke a few of my kids' iPhones over the years because they wouldn't go to bed. My wife was a teacher. That was her primary career. So between, the teaching abilities and how she taught my kids younger probably helped a lot. And then the discipline side as well, from my police career, I suppose. Perhaps set a good example or a good roadmap for them to follow.
Well, you clearly did a great job. They also, all of them seem to be sharing your dedication to public service. Now, is that something you stressed at home, or did you sort of lead by example? Yeah,
it was more lead. So, their success, it's a fleeting concept. I tell them that all the time. Success is about today, not yesterday. And we kind of lived by that. So, yeah, I think probably more the example they saw. Probably, they're all in the Army, serving their country and doing a great job.
Well, you did a great job being a parent. You've had a very successful career as in in policing. You could teach it. You could probably write a book on either one. But how do you balance home, job, and family? It can't be easy. Put another way, how do you sustain that calm, unflappable demeanor for which you're so well known?
Yeah, I am pretty calm. I mean, I guess that's a trademark. People are always like, why aren't you, more upset or more, angry about something? And, murder, rape, those are things to get maybe not upset about, but intense about. I always thought, the best course of action was, in all that turmoil, to be the calm, level-headed, rational thinking. My dad was a fiery Italian who didn't have that filter. My mom was just the opposite, and I definitely got my mom's side where she was more calm, more, nothing was a true emergency until it reached that level. So I've always been actually pretty calm. Sometimes that upsets people, or they think that, I'm not interested, but I am. I'm just trying to think through the problem, weigh options, develop solutions. And the family balance you talked about. I married a really good woman who put up with a husband who was a police officer working shift work all those years. So it was just a good combination of all that, really.
I have to ask one final question.
Sure.
Now that Roy Schneider, who played Chief Brody in Jaws, is no longer with us, if they make a movie about Lewis, who would you like to see cast as Chief Spell? Assuming, of course, it's not you. I don't know if acting is also on the list of accomplishments.
Well, Tom Selleck's probably too old. Tom Cruise, I don't think so. I'm going to go with Ed Harris.
Oh, my God. That's my wife thinks you're a dead ringer for Ed Harris. That is his... Kath will be so happy I lost that one. Oh.
It's funny you say that because everybody thinks that as well. I'll take Ed Harris.
I think any of us would take Ed Harris in a heartbeat. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
That's funny.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for all you do for the city, for all we know about, and most importantly, I'm guessing, what we don't know about.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks to your anonymous sponsors. Lewis is, as you've said many times, filled with remarkable, wonderful people who have done big things in the world and came here to enjoy life, but are also just amazing, Lewis citizens as well. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Most expressions of gratitude sound a little bit cheap when compared to what you've given us. I'll simply say our town is lucky to have you and Ellen as part of our community. A special thanks to today's sponsor, and finally, thank you for joining us. Our next episode will air on Tuesday, 2 weeks from today. Have a wonderful day, and please, if you can, stop, put aside all the usual daily dreck, and take a moment to enjoy the remarkable hamlet we call Lewis, and which some of us are lucky enough to call home. And I hope at some point during your day, the next time you see Chief Spell or a member of his department, you'll say thanks as well. Till next time, this has been We and Lewis, the podcast.